And here we go. Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning at KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you all for joining us last night at God and Country. What a huge event in the Treasure Valley, and probably even though we tried some of the most challenging half hour in radio afterwards, where we did the post game show and people were just going crazy, loving America, loving our Lord, and it was a great time. I want to thank everybody who participated, who stopped by. Specifically, the organizers and the sponsors of God and Country. It was a great event, and coming up about 10 o'clock, we'll have the photos from that. Just an inspirational evening. And we move on. We'll talk more about that throughout the day at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Joining us now from the Center for Immigration Studies, it's been a while, Mark Krikorian. Mark, good morning.
Good morning.
So we have a judge ruling that the parents can't be separated. I guess it was in California. And saying now that the parents and the kids have to be reunited. Your thoughts on that particular case? That seems to be where we are this morning.
Well, I mean, the administration's obviously working on reuniting the kids with parents anyway. It's the broader issue where the judge says that, kids can't be, illegal immigrant kids caught on the border with their illegal immigrant parents can't be separated. There's no legal basis for that. I mean, if it's a bad idea, then, and I'd prefer we didn't do it, but this is not something a judge has any business talking about. And what he's saying is, in effect, is that any illegal immigrant who brings a child with him must be released into the United States, because other judicial rulings say that you can't keep a minor in immigration detention for more than 20 days. So if you put that ruling together with this ruling, it means that the judges are saying to the executive, you have to let into the United States, let go any illegal alien who brings a kid with him. That officially now, bringing a kid is a get-out-of-jail-free card at the border. And, there's just going to be more of it. As it is, about 1 out of 4 illegal immigrants now are bringing kids with them when they sneak across the border, which is up from just 3% back in 2013. The reason is that it pays. In other words, if you bring a kid with you, and they know this and they say it, they say, we've heard that if you bring a child, they'll let you go, so we're bringing kids with us.
And this is a policy that has been going on for quite some time. Even President Trump was reading from the script that has been given to the illegals. Instead of coming in here and going through the process, they're claiming asylum, which is very different.
Yeah, I mean, what they're doing is, these are all Central Americans, almost all of them that we're talking about, and they've been coached by the smugglers to say that they fear return to their home country, and therefore they get put in the pipeline to apply for asylum. Very few of them get it because there's no grounds for asylum. In other words, coming from a country where things are crummy and there's gangs everywhere, or having a boyfriend or a husband who mistreats you, those are not grounds for asylum. They're just not. So very few Central Americans get asylum. But in a sense, it doesn't matter. They don't care about whether they get asylum. They care about whether they get let in to apply for it. Because once they get their foot in the door in the United States, then they're gone with the wind. I mean, they'll disappear into the illegal population, and nobody's going to be looking for them. So they're gone, and that's the goal. It's not getting asylum. It's using a claim of asylum as a pretext to get let into the United States.
Well, Mark, you've been covering this and documenting it for many, many years. How does this incarnation of the hysteria rank on the all-time list?
Oh, well, I mean, last week's hysteria was pretty hysterical. I mean, I think it's probably the most hysterical you can imagine in the immigration area. I mean, before that, probably the greatest level of hysteria was the travel ban when it was first announced. Both of those things have something in common. The administration's approach to both has something in common, and that is that the administration didn't make a case for what they were going to do. Both of those policies, frankly, were defensible. Some people didn't like them and were never going to like them. But I think what the administration failed to take into account is that, in a democracy, you don't just have elections. You also need to make the case for what you want to do, all along. And it would have, I think it would have been a lot less disruptive if the administration had come out and made a case before this zero tolerance policy went into effect. Say, look, explain to the American people, the law that exists now forces us to make a choice. Either we have to let anyone who brings a kid into the United States go, or we have to detain the adult to make sure that he doesn't run away, but the law forces us to release the child. And, he's put into a shelter or sometimes delivered to relatives. And that's bad, and I want Congress to fix that. And until they do, we're not going to let people into the United States. That he never did that ahead of time, never clearly made that case. So when it started to happen, not only did the usual suspects go berserk, but regular people, regular voters were kind of taken by surprise. That isn't a recipe for something that's going to be politically stable and sustainable.
Our great friend Mark Krikorian joining us, Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio. So we've been going over this for years and years, immigration reform, and the idea of amnesty. Remember, President Bush tried to do that. The base rebelled against him. You fight against this all the time. Are we just, continuing to plug the dam as the leaks continue to come in, or is anybody going to have enough guts to say we need secure borders besides President Trump?
Well, there are people saying that, but unfortunately, today, this very day, the House of Representatives is going to vote on an amnesty bill, and likely, this if it were to pass, it would be one of the biggest amnesty bills ever passed in the United States. It's not as big as those Gang of Eight bills, we heard for a few years back, but it would be pretty big. The good news is that it's almost certainly going to go down in flames. They've been, the House leadership has been trying to come up with something that the various House members can vote for, and I think none of the Democrats are going to vote for it. So the question is, can they get Republican votes? And the divide in the House of Representatives among Republicans really does help explain part of why we've, like you said, we've been dealing with this over and over again. You've got a split among the Republicans, not between liberal and conservative Republicans. That's not really what it is. It's between business-oriented Republicans and, sort of those who are still pro-business but are for whom national security and law enforcement is more important. And that's the big divide here. The reason we haven't been able to make more progress, even with a Republican majority in the House and a Republican majority in the Senate and a Republican in the White House, is that the business interests that don't like immigration enforcement, that don't want any moderation of the level of immigration. In fact, they want immigration to be doubled, not to be cut back. They have been very successful in preventing important immigration enforcement and security measures from going forward, and it looks like, at least for now, that's still the way it is.
And what about the consequences? By the way, you're listening to 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Mark Krikorian joining us, Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. But what are the consequences when we're talking about, and Mark, it's been a while since we've had you on. We've got a lot of new people listening. The consequences to our education system, our medical system, really our employment system.
Well, when people think about immigration, a lot of times they're thinking about, 100, 150 years ago, my great-grandparents, all that sort of thing, they came. And that's fine. So did mine. But we were a different country back then. And the effects that immigration, large-scale illegal immigration, or even large-scale legal immigration has are different from what they were in the past. For jobs, for instance. 150 years ago, if you, had a head on your shoulders and a decent work ethic, but had no education, you may even be illiterate, you could still get a good, decent job. It was hard work, but you could support your family working in a factory or working someplace like that. That doesn't happen anymore. If you're a sixth grade dropout from Honduras, there's nothing wrong. You're not a bad person. You may have a decent work ethic and all the rest of it, but what kind of job are you going to get in a modern society like ours? You get work. Immigrants have the same rate of working as the native-born do, but if you're poorly educated, you are not going to be able to get a job that earns a lot of money. Well, okay, so now you're working, but you don't earn a lot of money. Guess what? Then you're eligible for government benefits. Because most welfare is not for people sitting around eating bonbons. It's for people who are the working poor. And immigrants are the working poor and with kids. They have slightly more children than Americans. So you end up with, first, we're taking in lots of people into low-skilled jobs so that the Americans who would be competing for those same jobs have a harder time. You're putting stresses on the welfare system. And about half of all households headed by immigrants use at least some kind of means-tested welfare program. And then the kids are in schools. And again, there's nothing wrong with the kids in schools, but, they need English language training. The parents aren't paying that much in property taxes toward the school, so it creates fiscal stresses. There's a whole bunch of problems. And none of those problems is caused by immigrants being bad or defective. It's that they are a mismatch with a modern, high-tech society like ours.
Mark Krikorian joining us. Mark, finally here at KIDO Talk Radio. Could you answer the question where you have, Swarmy, Chuck Todd, and others where they go, you alluded to it a moment ago, well, this is how everybody came in. We're a nation of immigrants. Your people, my people. To me, it's very disingenuous to compare people who came here through Ellis Island to what we're seeing today.
Yeah, it's just different. That's the whole point. And again, I want to stress the point. It's not really that the immigrants are all that different. I hear that from people a lot. They say, well, my grandpa from Palermo didn't use welfare, and my grandma from Odessa wanted to become an American. And what's wrong with these people today? And I think that's the wrong question. The question is, what kind of country are they coming into? And we're just different from what we were 100 years ago, in good ways and bad ways, but in real ways. You don't have to, just to give you a couple of other quick examples. If you left the old country in the old days, you didn't just hop on a plane and go back for a 4-day weekend if your cousin was getting married. People went back, but even that was a long, expensive process. You had to kind of uproot yourself for real rather than be able to kind of hop between two countries. That means assimilation's less likely to happen nowadays, or slower and harder. And the other thing is, what's another change from 100 years ago is, and this relates to schools and other things, our political and business elites are just a whole lot less committed to assimilation. My mom was the daughter of immigrants. She went to public school and learned, memorized the Gettysburg Address and sang Hail Columbia and learned that George Washington was the father of our country. That's not what they're teaching immigrant kids in schools today, and it's not the immigrants' fault. It's our fault. We're not even Americanizing our own kids very well. So my point here is that in a whole bunch of ways, we are different, good ways and bad ways. But what it means is the policies that we were able to make work 100 or 150 years ago just don't apply nowadays. And, we don't have other government policies that we followed 150 years ago. Why should immigration be the one thing that we continue as though we still live in the 19th century when we live in the 21st century now?
Mark, if people want more information about your great work, what can they do?
We're online at CIS.org, that's Center for Immigration Studies, CIS.org, and we have a blog we update every day, and we have reports and stuff we post. And anyone who's in the market for snark and sarcasm can follow me on Twitter. It's Mark S., as in Stephen, Mark S. Krikorian. and I tweet pretty frequently there on immigration and sometimes on some other things.
Well, I love it when the news media identifies you as the extremist.
Yeah, I mean,
we've had you on for
they
years.
Haven't met a lot of extremists. Yeah.
Well, it's just funny. You're so level-headed. You're so well-researched, and it just makes me laugh how they make things up. But it's always great to have you on, Mark.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, our great friend Mark Krikorian joining us. We've had him on for years. Your thoughts on the travel ban being upheld at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, and, it's a topic that we have to get to, especially in light of what happened last night at God and Country. Is it illegal to sell aerial fireworks in Idaho? It's a question we have all the time, and we'll talk about your thoughts on that. I'll give you mine next. Kevin Miller, good morning, KIDO Talk Radio.
A Supreme Court ruling just coming out, a tremendous success, a tremendous victory for the American people and for our Constitution. This is a great victory for our Constitution. We have to be tough, and we have to be safe, and we have to be secure.
This ruling did not make us any safer, and I believe that the court was wrong. It's un-American to do what has been done.
The court has just given a green light to discrimination by the President of the United States against a group of people based on their faith, wherever and whenever he chooses to do so.
Whether it is Central Americans down at our border or Muslims escaping violence and terror, we must be a nation that stands for our values.
I think they're following the law. That the kind of people that the president's sending up and we're confirming have a very quaint notion that the job of a judge is to apply the law as it's written.
There we have it, the big reaction from the story we broke yesterday. As you heard Mark Krikorian talking about, there's going to be a big vote on immigration. Really comes down to this at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Will the courts let the executive do its job? Good morning, Kevin Miller with you here at 107.5 FM, 580 AM. That's really what it comes down to. Now you've got this court in California saying that the folks coming in illegally cannot be separated. The kids can't be separated from their families. Of course, there is a debate on whether or not, if you're not an American citizen, that you have due process. Many people believe that you do. I believe, like the president, that you don't. If you go to any other country in the world, you don't have the same protections as a citizen of that country. But at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, you hear the sour grapes, right? It's like having a Sour Patch Kid piece of candy. They're upset. They're angry. A 5-4 decision. And isn't it about time that the Supreme Court actually did something that we wanted? And thank God elections matter. 5-4, the travel ban is in effect. And really, what does the travel ban say? That if you're from a country that we'll just call you're a bad neighbor, right? You are like the Sons of Anarchy. Nobody wants to live next to bad neighbors. And if you're from North Korea, Yemen, Iran, some of these other places, we're going to vet you. And if we can't vet you, you ain't coming in. What's the big deal about that? Why are they so mad? Why are they so angry? Right? Look, we took what the Supreme Court did with same-sex marriage. That's the law, right? Instead of vowing to overturn everything, you got to respect the law. But when will these judges actually let the president do his job? More on that in a minute. Traffic and weather. Do you want to say thank you to everybody who showed up last night at God and Country in beautiful Nampa, Idaho. So refreshing to see everyone. There, gentleman who wanted to call in all the time. His name's Mr. Jack. We've got Roger who stopped by talking about his brother Jay. I could go on and on. The young lady who's a bus driver from Parma. And like I said, it's a great way to kick off the 4th of July season here in the Treasure Valley. So thank you all that attended. And for all the sponsors and for all the workers and volunteers, what a great job y'all did to make it a wonderful event. More coming up. And speaking of God and Country, we're going to talk a little bit more about the travel ban, a little bit more about Sarah Sanders. And, is it legal to be buying fireworks? Our friends at Channel 7 did a story on it. We're going to talk about it next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Good morning, Maggie.
Good
morning, Kevin Miller in the morning here, KIDO Talk Radio. Could there be a retirement on the Supreme Court? The libs are upset. Let's get the latest at KIDO Talk Radio.
He sides sometimes with the Democrats, so his vote is really important if you're on the left or if you're in the middle. But it terrifies people in the middle and on the left because it has the potential to swing the court in a different direction.
Some friends say he's been thinking about stepping down, and if he does, that would allow President Trump to make the court solidly conservative for decades.
If he decides to retire, and there are signs that he would, it would be a war for this court, like nothing seen in the past 30 years since the nomination of Robert Bork was defeated. And Justice Kennedy took his seat.
That's right.
Robin?
All right, Terry, thank you.
Everything changes in Washington. If he retires, it would be just seismic.
He is a moderate conservative, so if he goes, that's going to give President Trump a massive opportunity to move the court further to the right for generations, and Democrats would basically be powerless to stop it.
And that's what I'm talking about. Justice Kennedy looks like he could be retiring. And it's about time. Kennedy was appointed by, Reagan? In place of Bork. Kennedy, not a reliable conservative. Kennedy, partnered with the liberals quite a bit. He was the swing vote. We get him out. And people say, well, Kevin Miller, you get Kennedy out, Trump's not like Bush, either Bush. He's going to get a real conservative in. I hope it's Bill Pryor from the circuit out of Atlanta. And you get that. And again, this is all speculation. We've had people, go from right to left. You could also, of course, we never seem to have anybody going left to right, so we'll see about that as we cover the Supreme Court if there is a retirement. Joining us now, our great friend, Eben Brown, Fox News Radio, with the Red Hen reopening under some much-needed attention. Eben, or maybe some unwelcomed attention. Good morning.
Good morning. Probably unwelcomed, but certainly, I'm sure, unexpected. By the owners and the employees of the Red Hen, who over the weekend kicked Sarah Sanders, the White House press secretary, out from their restaurant. This is the Red Hen in Lexington, Virginia. Not to be confused with the Red Hen in D.C. proper, which has got nothing to do with that other restaurant. It's not a franchise or co-owned or anything like that, but a lot of people have made the mistake and started directing a lot of the online hate towards that restaurant, which has said nothing but, hey, we've had nothing to do with this. But it's the Red Hen in Lexington, Virginia. The owner of that restaurant, Stephanie Wilkerson, had to resign from a Lexington business leaders group over the weekend, too. There's just been a lot of heat ever since they decided that Sarah Sanders wasn't welcome in the restaurant.
Well, it's crazy. So much for any publicity is good publicity.
Well, in this case, I think that axiom's been tested. There has been a lot of flooding of the social media sites for the restaurant with bad reviews. Even the president tweeted the restaurant was dirty inside. So it's been quite the backlash, and they do reopen today, I think, for the first time since then, and we'll find out if it really affects their business, if people stay away, or if perhaps people come with the purpose of supporting the restaurant. So we'll see. I guess everyone's going to sit on the left side of the table. I don't know.
Well, any idea? And I guess there were reports from the owner. She doubled down over the weekend after she did this. You'd have to think that, regardless of your politics, that this would get some attention, some unneeded attention. I'm trying to think of who says it. When they say they don't do politics because you're going to alienate at least half your audience. They're there to sell dinners, not make political statements.
Yes, that is true, but it's also true that the wait staff came to the owner and said, we don't want her here, and the owner obliged with that.
Well, we'll see if they make it. I'm sure you'll be on the case, perhaps. You'll get a per diem from Fox News Radio to check it out one-on-one there.
Maybe.
Eben, you have a great day, sir.
You too.
Bye-bye. All right, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. One more time on just the possible retirement of Justice Kennedy.
Is a swing voter, which means he sides sometimes with the Democrats. So his vote is really important if you're on the left or if you're in the middle. But it terrifies people in the middle and on the left because it has the potential to swing the court in a different direction.
Some friends say he's been thinking about stepping down, and if he does, that would allow President Trump to make the court solidly conservative for decades.
If he decides to retire, and there are signs that he would, it would be a war for this court, like nothing seen in the past 30 years since the nomination of Robert Bork was defeated. And Justice Kennedy took his...
Don't you love how Terry Moran of ABC News, it's not their reporting, it's advocating, and it's going to be a war. No, a war is Afghanistan. A war is not over who's going to be on the Supreme Court. That's a figure of speech. Go talk to somebody who served. They'll tell you what a real war is. Joining us now, 2 days in a row, is it? Tom Munz, TomMunz.com, Munz Tom Twitter. Good morning, sir.
I know, but when there's things relating to principle, I believe that they're important. So I appreciate that.
When the show's in trouble, he's he's never slow. It's hip, 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 and away he goes.
I'd advocate that Afghanistan wasn't even a real war. But anyway, you and I kind of differ on that. I had a couple thoughts this morning. One of them is the fact that we've actually allowed to talk about the left and the right in relating to the Supreme Court as normal speech. I would actually advocate that a left or right judge in the Supreme Court is actually treason. I don't think that we should even tolerate or allow that type of speech because it violates the fundamental principles of the court, and not to forget blind Lady Liberty. I mean, what was blind Lady Liberty all about anyway?
Wait a minute, I'm lost when you're saying left and right speech isn't allowed in the court. What are you talking about?
Left and when we talk about the Supreme Court and we say, well, we're going to get a left judge or we're going to get a right judge, if we have a left judge or a right judge, I would advocate that if they're not constitutional judges, they should be ejected. And there should be no mention of the fact that there's a left judge and have it be acceptable.
Yeah, that's unrealistic, Tom.
Well, it's unrealistic, but, I live in my little world of altruisms all by myself, apparently.
I don't blame you. I live in my own world as well.
Yeah, I know, but I don't get to hide. I wish I could. Well, I was going to talk about the burn ban or the fireworks ban. Yesterday I saw a burn ban. California's got water bans, and I think it's really important to mention that government-authorized bans violate one or several of our fundamental principles, and they assume guilt. And the other principle, that governments were supposed to be able to protect people's freedoms rather than ban or regulate them. This idea that the government has the authority to be able to run roughshod over the people and tell people what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do when people haven't even committed crimes is ridiculous. And anybody that actually stands there and says that, well, I take an oath and I'm a patriot and I'm about God and country, but I'm going to go ahead and ban fireworks because we can't have people lighting fires. It's like, well, on that premise, we don't have any freedom because the government can do anything to be able to protect anybody from anything. And I think it's ridiculous. I think that people should make sure that their voice is heard and make sure that we don't allow the government to continue to overreach. This show has always been about complaining. It's always been about complaining about all of the world's problems. But I wonder how many of the people actually do anything about trying to correct the situation rather than talk about Trump as if he's some kind of king.
Well, I don't think this show is. I don't think this show has been about complaining. I think that this program has been about people having the ability to speak. If you go to a public meeting, as you know, you get 3 minutes and you're shown the door on a good day. If you go somewhere else, this show has always been a home for people such as yourself who have formed their own groups and their own platforms and met whether they agreed or disagreed. When we say it's about complaining, and I don't take offense to it, I know you're going with this, it endorses the negative that the left wants to define us as. What scares me is you have people that don't want to engage. They just want to stifle, which is the complete opposite of Tom Munz.
Mm.
I give it to you. You're out there.
It's a fearful place to be, and doing it as long as some of us have, it's a cross that it gets pretty heavy to bear at times. People are, they ridicule you, they give you a hard time, they look at you like you're extreme. You don't even get the opportunity to ask them to define extreme, only to find out that they can't. They make assumptions that they've either heard from somebody else or whatever. And we live in this world where, our opinions, our opinions trump the facts, and they trump the law, and they trump our ability to even communicate with one another. And that's a really dangerous place to be. So, and I, for one, am one of your greatest fans, man, to be able to allow me to be able to speak freely on the radio and all of that. And, you've done a great thing for me, and I hope you've done a great thing for Idaho, and just keep continuing to do it.
Well, Tom, as long as you listen, you take care, brother.
All right, you too, man. Thanks.
Bye-bye. Our great friend Tom Munns. Coming up next, are you down with fireworks? Should they be illegal in the Treasure Valley in the state of Idaho? Some people say yes. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
That's what we need, border security. We got to get going. A lot of bad things are happening, and I think we're doing it incredibly well. We have no tools. We have bad laws. We have the worst immigration laws in the history of the world. Okay, it's a joke. People can't believe it. Other countries look at us, and they say, how is that possible? Somebody touches our land. We now take them to a court, to a judge. They want us to choose 5,000 judges. How do you choose 5,000 judges? Can you imagine the corruption just from a normal standpoint, just common sense? Can you imagine the corruption? Go to the barber shop, grab somebody, make them a judge. Everybody's being made a judge. They want 5,000 judges. More. It's crazy. Other countries, it's called, I'm sorry, you can't come in. You have to leave. This one, we have judges. If they step on our land, we have judges. It's insane. So we're going to have to change our whole immigration policy. And I was saying last night in South Carolina, when I came in, I inherited some things. We inherited North Korea. That's going really well. We inherited horrible trade deals. That's going really well. Nobody knows what's happening behind the scenes, but these countries that have been really, they can't even, I don't blame them. I blame our people. But they have just been ripping years. They want to negotiate so badly, you have no idea. We inherited a lot of different things, but of all of them, immigration makes the least sense. It is a hodgepodge of laws that have been put together over years, and we have to change it. It's so simple. It's called, I'm sorry, you can't come in. You have to go in through a legal process. You don't have to see a judge where the judge is going to take 3 years before you can come back. In the meantime, you never come back because you're already in the country. You're someplace in the country. And that would be bad, but it's really bad when it's a criminal. And we have plenty of them coming into the country this way. And they use the children. They use these young children for their own benefit. So we have to change the whole immigration picture. And we'll be able to do it. We need the border wall. We need the border. We need border security. And we need modern equipment. And we'll get it done. I have no doubt. Anybody else would like to say something? Anybody? Are we okay?
There we have it, the president after the travel ban was announced. And who cannot agree with everything the president of the United States said? You know, to be an American is a privilege. Most of us were born here. Many of us had a dream. Our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and we came into the country legally. We're not entitled to be an American. Not every citizen of the world, not Captain Planet, is entitled to come in and steal citizenship. And for the people that don't like the president, for the people that say that he's mean and this, that, and the other, no, I'm sorry, you just can't come in. Wouldn't it have been great if George Bush had said that? No, George Bush tried to sell amnesty to us. And this is a situation that at least President Trump, at the very least, is calling people out and saying enough is enough. And the courts are backing him up. Right? That's where we're at. And it affects us in Idaho. It affects us in Texas. It affects us everywhere. But here you have a guy with the guts. I'd like to hear from somebody who disagrees with the president. And quite frankly, in America, in the workplace, at home, at a restaurant, we should have the ability not to be fearful to wear a Make America Great Again hat and to be able to express our political beliefs without being shouted down by the mob. that are ignorant and don't understand what's going on here. Look, you can't come into America. You're not an American. I'm sorry. You can't come in. And these judges need to get it. Or we need to get new judges. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Traffic and weather together. Rick Everett.
While the president has won this round, we are moving on to the next round. We will be fighting the implementation of this ban, and we will be fighting other efforts in the courts and in the courts of public opinion.
There you have it. Of course, the courts of public opinion, they want people vetted. They don't want people to just come into this country and run amok and cause problems. Right? Why do we have to make it religious? It has nothing to do with anybody's religion.
The court has just given a green light to discrimination by the President of the United States against a group of people based on their faith, wherever and whenever he chooses to do so.
How many people of Muslim faith live in North Korea? North Korea is part of the travel ban. R&R, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Good morning, R&R.
Good morning, Kevin. Thanks for being the voice of reason one more day. This is 1954. I always say it's 1964. So the dole came in 62 to 64, and I was raised on a commercial orchard. And the people we depended on back then were people who came across the border and predominantly from Mexico, and love them all. Used to give them rides to get their groceries and haircuts and provide anything they needed, and then they would come back sometimes year after year, and but it ain't 1964 again, and I agree totally with our President of the United States. The other problem I see, and it hasn't even been talked about, is children that are conceived out of wedlock illegitimately, and the bio fathers or sperm donors just skip, and those kids never know their daddy. So to go along with this family separated, like people who don't take their parenting and don't pay their child support are unwanted in my benevolent experience. And thank you for all you did last night over at God and Country. It's a good morning.
It's a great day to be in America. Peace out, brother. Thank you, R&R. Phone number's here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. But you hear these folks, they're going to keep fighting. What are they fighting? If there's another terrorist attack that could have been prevented because we properly vetted people, what does that have to do with discrimination? And to these folks that have an issue with the travel ban, okay, I know what you're against. What are you for? It's just like the people that want everybody to come into the country illegally. Okay, well, what is the standard? Everybody should be entitled to come into America? Let's apply that to your home. Then everybody should be entitled to come into your home and eat your food and take your wallet and take your money and replace your family. Right? When we apply, well, no, we don't want to do that. It's like the City Council of Boise. They condemned what was going on. Well, let them open themselves up to having these folks coming in and keep the families together. Like when you're busted in criminal court here. Well, no, we don't keep the families together for Americans. Why are we doing it for people that aren't American? Got me.